me. My name is Sloan Lynch, and this is going to be my journey from student to teacher. To start off, I just want to start off with a quote. To be called teacher might indeed be one of the greatest compliments one could ever receive. I'm still in the process of my journey, but I have to say that's a quote that I definitely believe in. If you guys want to take a look at the handout that I gave you guys, it's an illustrated timeline of what my journey looks like as of now. Illustrated timelines are something that I made my students do a few times throughout the semester. Hopefully you'll see throughout this presentation that I'm a big fan of processing assignments, and I think for students to learn, they have to process the material that I'm giving them. So for me to process what my journey looked like, I decided to create an illustrated timeline. So I decided to give it to you guys so that while you guys are watching my presentation, you have a better idea of what my journey looks like. Just give me a second. All right. So, where it all began. 18 years ago, I started kindergarten. And for me, I think that's where my educational journey started. As you can see, this is me. Yes, I did have a bowl cut. You can thank my mother for that. But ever since I was in kindergarten, I loved school. And that's something that's so true. I loved learning new things. My mom often makes fun of me and jokes around how I used to cry on the last day of school because I was so sad that it was over. Luckily now, I do enjoy my summer break, so I'm a little over that. But I think I was always meant to end up in the classroom and to become a teacher. My educational journey took me to Virginia Tech in fall of 2006, and that's when I decided to major in history to pursue a career in social studies education. I decided to major in history because it was always my favorite subject growing up. I thought it was interesting, and I think it's something that's valuable for students to learn. So ultimately, I decided to become a teacher first, and then I chose my subject matter second. In January of 2010, I started my first educational classes, so I enrolled in the graduate school. And I think this is kind of where my official journey begins from student to teacher. Okay, so the first time I had any experience in the classroom came through my early field experience. I'd never been in a classroom before in a teacher role until this time. I was placed in a 12th grade classroom where I got to teach seniors. So in the beginning, I was really nervous. Not only had I never been in a classroom before, but now I was supposed to be able to stand up in front of students that were 4 years younger than me. So to start out my early field experience, I could say I was nervous. But I think this whole experience for me was about learning what it meant to be a teacher. And when I started this out, I always thought of my teacher as someone that stood in the classroom and gave instructional material to the students. That's what I thought a teacher was. Boy, did I realize that there are a lot more roles that goes into it. Through my early field experience, I discovered the importance of planning. A good teacher has to not only plan a lesson for the next day, but be able to plan out the whole year and plan out a unit and figure out where she's taking their students. I also realized the importance of grading. I spent a lot of this first semester grading papers and trying to give the students thoughtful feedback, but then also trying to do it in a timely manner. That way they could use this information to help them on their future tests and reflect on what was going on. I also realized that teachers have these things called duties. This was something I never thought about until this. For this, my early field experience, my duties looked like every morning I would stand in the locker rooms with my students just to make sure that they didn't do anything bad and that they were going to get to class on time. But I also witnessed teachers doing duties such as lunch duty, bus duty, and so on. Extracurricular activities. This was also something that I saw a role that teachers have to take on in a classroom, or outside of a classroom, I guess. I had the opportunity to go see a football game that a few of my seniors played in, and that was something that meant a lot to them to show that I cared about what they were doing outside of the classroom. I also, my cooperating teacher, sponsored a club, and so I got to be able to see what that looked like in corresponding to teaching, and that was something that I hope to be involved in later on. And then finally, I saw the instruction part. Of course, a major role that the teacher plays is standing in front of the classroom and conveying the content material to the students. This is the time that I had the opportunity to teach my very first lesson that I created to seniors. And I'm a little to show what this lesson plan looks like, because it's not really a lesson plan. I don't know why I didn't create a lesson plan for what I was doing. In my mind, what I did is I went through and I knew my standard and I knew the flow of my lesson. But I was more concerned about the content material that I was teaching, because that's what I felt uncomfortable with at the time. So this is what my lesson looks like, even though it's not in the lesson plan format. What I did for this lesson was, it was on how a bill becomes a law. So I started it out with introductory notes, in which my students filled out a graphic organizer that I created. So they were getting that content material. And then after they filled out this graphic organizer, we actually went through a bill and we created a bill. It was a bill that was on whether or not cell phones should be allowed in the classroom. And that was something that I thought the students might be engaged in and might be interested in doing. So I took the bill, or the students did, all the way through the processes of from bill to law. That way the students could understand this complex process more. I ended the lesson with Poll Everywhere. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that's a website in which you can create polls, and then students have the opportunity to vote in them using their cell phones. So again, that was something that the students were very engaged in, and so even though I don't think I made a lesson plan officially, I think if my lesson was successful, it was something the students interacted with the material, they were engaged in what they were doing, and ultimately, I think they learned. All right. So, we all, I assume everyone, I know the social studies cohort did, we're reflecting throughout this whole, my official journey from student to teacher in a blog. And I just wanted to read to you guys an excerpt from a blog post that I had on my last day of my early field experience. I remember vividly on the first day of my internship how I was pretty nervous to introduce myself in front of the class. I never played the role of teacher before and was not really sure what it would take. But slowly, after mirroring many of Miss Sunshine's lessons and taking control of the class bit by bit, I now feel like I belong in front of a classroom. And that's truly how I felt after my early field experience. I can remember I had to introduce myself to my seniors on the first day, and I was just kind of rambling, going on. And then by the end, I was actually able to plan a lesson that I think engaged them and something that they learned from. So this truly was an experience of growth.